Hello everyone. Today's video is on fractions and division. Here we're going to see how we can incorporate fractions when we're dividing different objects amongst a certain amount of people or groups. The first thing you need to do is divide your paper in half, just like it's shown here, and we're going to show two examples of how we can use fractions and division. Pardon my voice, it's a little raspier than usual today. Alrighty, so on the top section, we're going to see our first example. So in this example, we have 4 hikers that are sharing 3 granola bars. Now, don't ask me why they're sharing those 3 granola bars. Maybe one of the hikers forgot theirs at home. I don't know, but they're going to share them. So here we want to know what fraction of each granola bar one of the hikers gets. So make sure you write this problem down at the top of your top section so that we can figure out what fraction of the granola bar each hiker gets. Okay, so here we want to know the fraction of a granola bar for each hiker. So the first thing we're going to do is put our 3 granola bars. Here's 1, 2, and 3. Now we know that there's 4 hikers that are going to share these granola bars. So the first thing we need to do is divide each of these granola bars into 4 pieces since there's 4 hikers. So here's 4 pieces for this granola bar, 4 pieces for this one, and 4 pieces for the last one. Now for this part, if you have the colors, please use them since we're going to use them to show what part of each granola bar that each hiker gets. So the first hiker would get a piece of this granola bar, a piece of this granola bar, and a piece of that one. The next hiker would get this piece, and this piece. The third hiker would get a piece here, a piece here, and a piece here. And the fourth hiker would get 1 piece from each. So here we can see that this is everything that hiker 1 gets. This is everything that hiker 2 gets. This is what hiker 3 gets. And this is hiker 4. So if we look at each of them, this is 1/4 of this granola bar. This is 1/4 of this granola bar, and this is 1/4 of the last granola bar. Once I put each of those together, 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4, that gives me 3/4. So each hiker gets 3/4 of a granola bar. And here that is my answer statement. Each hiker gets 3/4 of a granola bar. And we can see that that would be the same for any of the hikers because they all got the same amount. Alrighty, so your note should look like this. That was our first example of how we can use fractions and division to answer the question. It was asking what fraction of the granola bar they would each get. But first we had to divide those granola bars up amongst the people that they were talking about. So let's look at one more example now. This is going to be in your bottom section. Okay, so in this problem, we have 8 friends sharing 4 cookies. Now, that's a pretty generous person. If I had 4 cookies, I don't know that I would want to share them with 8 people, but in this situation, that's what we're doing. So here we want to know what fraction of a cookie does each friend get. We're asking what fraction of the cookie does each friend get. Because obviously, if there's 8 people and there's only 4 cookies, they're not going to get the entire cookie. They're only going to get a piece of it. So we want to know what fraction of that cookie they would get. So now let's model. Here's my first, my second, my third, and my fourth cookie. Now I really tried my best to make them about the same size each because that's what we would do if they were fractions. They have to be the same size wholes. So now since I know that they're sharing them amongst 8 people, I'm going to break each of these cookies into 8 pieces. We do this by going across and down for 4, and then in an X that makes it 8. So I'm going to do that with each of my cookies. Making the pieces as even as I can. Okay, so now I have my 4 cookies that are broken into 8 pieces for each of the 8 friends. Now here, the first friend is going to get this piece, the second that one, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, and the 8th friend. So each person got 1 piece of that cookie. Now we're going to do the same thing with the next cookie. We're going to put 1 piece for each person, because we broke it up into 8 pieces so that each of them would get 1. Okay, so now we know that each person got 1 piece from each of the cookies. So I'm just going to look at person 1 right now. Again, if you have the colors, use them for this part of the notes. So person 1 got this piece, got this piece, got this piece, and got this piece. So out of this first cookie, since it was broken into 8 pieces, this person got 1/8 of this cookie. Then they also got 1/8 out of this cookie, 1/8 out of this cookie, and 1/8 out of that cookie. If we put them all together, that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4 eighths. So here it shows me that each friend got 4/8 of the cookie, because it would be the same thing for person number 2 or person number 3 or person number 4, and on, because they each got 1 piece out of the cookies, and each cookie was broken into 8 pieces. So now my answer statement says that each friend got 4/8 of a cookie. Now that's not a whole cookie, but it sure is better than nothing. So each person got equal pieces of each of the cookies, and they ended up with 4/8. All right, so your notes should look like this. Again, this was fractions and division. We first had to divide an object or objects into equal pieces to share amongst others, and then we had to decide what fraction of the entire thing they each got. Be sure you answer the question and be prepared to discuss.